Let's do some forge welding. So, let the rods, put it over, and bam! It's that easy. Yeah, that's usually how my life is when it comes to forge welding. So, we are going to use now 3 weeks, 21 days, grinding every morning, every night, every afternoon. But we have to learn it properly. So we're going to do everything from plate to pipe to round stock to everything. So first thing I need to do is go to the library to read a little bit, techniques and facts and things like that, and then trial and error over and over again until it's stuck. To start this project, I have to go and try to get rid of that thing over there. So now the long process of reading starts, so... time.
Deras möte nu.
Nej, eller?
För att vi kommer att stänga skolan från och med idag.
I don't know if you heard, but we've got something which called the coronavirus. Our plan of forge welding for 3 weeks at the row has been delayed, we can say. So now we're gonna clean up and shut down the school. For now. Let's close the door. Guess I go home. Name of the game is 27 days. Yeah, it took some time before the school opened again, but we are back, so now we're gonna do the forge welding. I must say the time between the first and second day went quite nice, did some reading and things like that. And day 3 to 27, 6 at the morning. Time to make some cake! Nicholas. Men filteret er fullt. Where are you? Oh, I know. Shit, no. I feel rather miserable. Wonderful. Oh. Men se. Need some extra spice. Yeah. But we're here now, so we're gonna do forge welding. So first of all, let's make a plan. The plan is 2 pieces together, chop, rinse and repeat. And gonna cross-check it with these, which is the flux, the time, the steel, the water, the temperature, the airflow, and the hammer force to see how they react in different orders. How fast and hard you hit with the hammer. Light taps, or is it just one big? The airflow, is it a stream or is it pulsating? Is it sand or borax? How long in the forge are you going to keep it on a low temperature for long and then high it? So there's a lot of things would make a good or bad result, and now I'm gonna cross-check it with everything and combine them in different order to figure out golden plan of how this is done to make an easy, rememberable way to forge weld. So hopefully we'll get some good results. So let's begin. No. Nope. Nope. Success. Yeah.
Wow!
Yes!
Espen is fucking!
Sorry! Gosh, it! 9. Yeah. Success. Super hot. Okay. Well, it works. So what did we do right this time? Not make me happy. Better, but not good. Something way too hard. Small taps. Yeah, small taps. How little force can one actually use? Would you look at that? I should be able to just place it on top. This should be enough. Damn! You hold the forge. It's best to pump here. Light taps. Then we don't get any deformation. Pumping light taps. Can open it. Quartz sand. And 4 seconds. There you can see 20 grains left on iron is more than enough to get the amount of flux you need. So I heat those separately, put them together, and then light taps. Important to have it clean. Steel brush, sand, and side up. And the results are in. Bloody. And are they boring? Yes. No. Yeah. So let's start with flux. What I did use is borax and sand. Borax has the melting point of 743 degrees and a boiling point of 1575 degrees. Very good for working with steel. And good for everything. Works on everything, kills everything. Perfect. But sand has a melting point of 1710 degrees. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is where the fun part starts. No. Because iron has a melting point of 1538 degrees. So how can you use sand, silica, which is a melting point of 1710 degrees? So, do some research. So when you heat up iron to state of austenite between 800 degrees to 1200 degrees Celsius, you transfer the iron, which then turns into iron oxide, which is Fe to iron oxide, and that changes everything. So here's the mind-blowing part of when you're combining the iron oxide with the silica, then you get the new material, which is this one, which is phyllite, anyway, which is a melting point of 1200 degrees instead of 1710. And that, my ladies and gentlemen, is how we can use sand on iron as a flux. It was much more interesting in my head. Next. So, let's talk about time. I think one of the key features about the time when doing forge welding is giving enough time to get a good temperature in the core, so it reached the core. Because it is possible to forge weld when you just have the surface in the welding temperature, but when you're taking it out, the core will sap all the heat from it, which give you quite a limited time of working. So if you have the core at almost the same temperature as the welding temperature, you get a much longer time to do the weld, and much longer is a couple of seconds, and that's usually the time you need. If I have this side up in the forge, I will take it out when it's starting to reach the right temperature and then turn it around. So you get the other side, so you get warmth from all sides. So, steel and iron. I'll be using mostly iron on this process, and that is for the reason that it's one consistent element to work with. Steel does have quite a lot of different mixture in it and does react differently. Steel does usually have a lower melting point, so the temperature and the amount of oxygen you give to it is quite critical. So you do have to be more careful with it. Iron is iron. I must say, that was nice. Next. Qu'est-ce que c'est là? Water. I did see some articles about water could have a great effect when you're using coke and charcoal for reducing the amount of chemicals and gases coming into the steel. So by pouring water, it turns into steam and then takes out most of the chemicals. I did not see so much of that, but what I did find was it do help quite a lot with the heat. My wonderful illustration here shows how the water works by the radiation heat. This is the iron, here's the air coming out, and here's all the heat. So take water and it doesn't affect the heat itself in the core. So by doing that, you save quite a big amount of coal and you don't get so much heat radiation. Next, hang in there. So, temperature and airflow. And the name of the game is combustion. Everything is about oxygen when it comes to solid fuel. Oxygen is both your friend and your enemy when it comes to forge welding. So if you have a high airflow, you get a high temperature, but also a high amount of oxygen, which you don't want because oxygen make it oxidate, and which makes it prevent forge welding. In worst case, you burn everything up. So when you're starting and putting new coal on the forge, or half a bucket or something, I did find it was best to start with a quite high heat and then lower it and then let it soak before you go into the welding temperature. Because if you get it too high and keep it there, you will get the sparkling and you will just oxidate and burn up the material. But if you high it before it starts to come to the melting point, welding point, and then lower it and let it soak, you will get a very nice result and you will get quite good heat at the core without any burn. So since the camera can't pick up the colors of the welding temperature, I would say this one is the right temperature to do the welding, and you can see it by it's white and it got almost like an oily scale, and that's the melted metal. And this one, which is like going over to yellow states, it's usually too cold to do the forge welding. But by using flux, you are able to press down the welding temperature, but I would recommend it to have it white. And if you go above that, like, which is way too hot, and you then oxidize the metal so much that game over. In many cases, it's best to just chop it off and start with a new piece. And the last bit, hammer force. I must say, I'm quite surprised you don't need force at all. What I did find was the best way to do was just tap it, and it was... Because if you do have more force when you're using the hammer, like it's deformate the iron very fast. You can use force, but you don't need to use force. And if you use force, you deformate the iron. That's maybe what you want to do. But I did find the best way to start and weld the first 1 or 2 welds just to tap. And if you have like the hook weld, I did find it was best just to place the hammer and press on it 2 seconds and then start tapping. Quite good actually. Best thing, a flat surface hammer was better to use than a curved surface hammer. So when the piece is welded together to one solid object, it's still not homogeneous because you create a new compound, which is the diffusion line, and that is a new material. So even though I did start with iron, you create something new in between, and that is because it absorbs and rejects different materials, which has a completely different crystallization and atom structure. And you can see it in the form of veins. So you can see it in wrought iron, Lancashini, pattern welding. Best way to see if it is a good line is to just crack it open and see the crystallization.
You see, this one is terrible because it's only been welded on this point, so we take this away.
And I want it to be clean.
And then we have this one. This is a good weld. This is a very good weld. You can see this one, which is fine grain, is an okay weld, but what we would like to have is this grain structure. Very good weld. You can see it's more shiny and there's more texture on it. Both of them are good, but for this one to reach this, you have to soak more in the heat and let it get more melted. And that is the reason why they get more texture and why it's a bigger diffuse line, because it has longer time to be melted and longer time to fuse together. And if you repeat the process and fold it over again, you will get to this, which is Lancashini or wrought iron or weld iron, which is just iron welded over. And you can see the lines there, that is a diffuse line. And if you repeat the process, we'll just get more lines.
Now we know everything we need to know, so let's go have a little show and tell into the forge. Try to keep the iron above around 4 to 5 centimeters, at least above where the air is coming out, and that is because if you have it too close, you get too much oxygen, you just burn up the material. So the higher up you can get it, or at the side, the better it is. Build up the fire so you get like a round top. Wait until you get the core inside to be good heat. Put the metal in, off center, higher the heat. with high heat so we can get a good kickstarter to get it hot. And since things are getting hot now, it's a very good time to use the water around. And what you see here is steam, not the gas. And what it does is that it's center so you don't get the radiation heat. So you take the iron, turn it around so you get both sides hot. And then, now it's yellow, so take it out, make it clean, take the sand, and let it rest there for 4 seconds. When they've reached 4 seconds, take it out, and that is enough. Take the 2 pieces with the sand side in, a little tap just to make them fit together, and put it back. It's important now that you have both sides with the sand in between, even vertically, because if you have it this way, all the gas and impurities will come into the weld. So have it this side to make it better. Yeah. So have it this side, it's much better. Now, turn up the heat again, take it out and rotate it. That is, as I said, because we want the heat to be even. When we are reaching the temperature, we lower the heat, not completely, but we lower it. And that is because now it's time to make the metal go melted. Then we get ready to do the welding. Take out the iron and we go ticky 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 ticky. Thanks for watching, and as always, until next time.